and for the last 20 years I've been in end-of-life care. And let me tell you, watching how people in America die is like watching a horror movie. It starts the way horror movies always do, unsuspecting, attractive people in a comfy environment. They have no idea what they are in for. There are ominous signals that appear, but these things go right over these folks' head. At this point, those of us who know how end-of-life care goes in the United States are yelling at the screen. Your advance directive, don't rely on that. It'll probably be ignored. You might spend the last 30 days of your life in the ICU. You're going to end up like your Uncle Leo, and you said you never wanted to end up like that. My organization, Compassion and Choices, has spent its entire duration working to empower people so that at the end of life they have the experience and the kind of care that maximizes their own deepest values and highest priorities. Today I'm going to tell you some things about, yes, this really horrific situation we have in the United States and how difficult it is to change the fact that so many people suffer needlessly at the end of life. You might feel like yelling at the screen right along with me, because after all, when it comes to an end-of-life experience, we're all kind of hapless consumers. But we can also empower ourselves. Don't worry. When we're done, we'll know how to be powerful like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. First, let's meet this end-of-life monster. Whoops. That's the monster. It's a medical system that is bent on overtreatment. Right now, it is loose on the land. We don't have anything to control it. The best data we have shows that intense, non-beneficial, potentially harmful treatment is on the rise. It's not diminishing. The overwhelming majority of people say they want to die at home, yet 65% of people die in institutions. So here's some yell at the screen statistics. 1 in 4 people who enter an ICU with a documented DNR order get CPR anyway. 75% of patients with advanced cancer get treatment that the professional society, ASCO, has published as more likely to hurt than help the patient. 75% of patients with a documented preference in their chart for comfort care get at least one aggressive intervention. And we thought palliative care was going to come to the rescue, but unfortunately the data is that a hospital's palliative care program has no significant impact on patterns of overuse of the ICU or underuse of hospice. Well, it's an old adage that problems worthy of attack prove their worth by attacking back. And we have certainly learned that in our 2 years of R&D. We spent 2 years and several $1 million. And we found that there are several reasons why this adversary is winning. Number 1, just like our horror movie victims, people have a false sense of security. 9 out of 10 people believe that their treatment options will be honored, and their children believe the same. Reason number 2, we are a death-phobic society. There's no secret. People don't want to talk about dying. Focusing on advanced care planning, which is where all the focus is now, is part of the problem about being ineffective. It simply misses the point. The point is not to talk about what we would want to have when we can't speak for ourselves. The point is arm people to enable them to make good decisions when they can speak for themselves. Illnesses like cancer and heart disease, of course, pass through these stages. Pass through stages. Advanced directives are good, there's nothing wrong with them, but they come here, they come too early to actually have an impact when they're needed. DNRs and PULSE are good, but they come too late. Too late when the patient can no longer speak for themselves. They've already made decisions that have produced overtreatment. The time to tame the monster is during this period here. This is what we call the benefit burden period. This is the period of heavy lifting. This is the period when, as illnesses advance, treatments are likely to have a diminishing return in benefit and an accelerating return in harms. Here, people need to learn how to weigh the benefits and the burdens of every test and treatment they have against their own values, against their own priorities for the end of their lives. These are the real-time decision points in here that will have a big impact on end-of-life suffering. Reason number 4, I'm sorry to say, informed consent is mostly a dangerous myth. Very few patients with advanced illnesses are fully informed of all their treatment options. Very few get a full picture of the downsides of treatment. And of course, every treatment has downsides. Very few know that the default is always going to be offering treatment intended to extend life at all costs. Palliative care, comfort care, very often gets left out. And finally, the monster's winning because provider-driven care to change, provider-driven efforts to change the system are just too slow. We have 300,000 people turning 65 every month. We simply can't wait for provider-driven solutions to work. Well, did you ever notice in the horror movies, it's never the authorities, it's never the institutions that figure out how to slay the monster. It's always some clever teen or plucky reporter or some eccentric scientist. Well, it's the same here. It's consumers who will change the system and defeat the scourge of overtreatment. It's just like the movements for natural birthing and AIDS treatment. Personal advocacy on a mass scale is the only thing that can change the system fast enough to be effective for us. Consumers are by no means up in arms about treatments that cause suffering with no benefit because so few know the facts at a systemic level. Consumers don't want to blame doctors for overtreatment. They rely on their doctors, of course, for expert care. We don't want to blame doctors either. A person is not the problem, it's the system. So here's our approach. Arming consumers to defeat overtreatment means meeting consumers' needs that they know they have. Our treatment and treatment initiative is consumer-driven. It stops the conveyor belt so patients can tailor care to live life to the fullest, even as their illnesses advance. Truth in treatment is an attitude. It's this attitude, quite frankly. It's a way of being. It gives those with life-threatening illnesses permission and the courage to live their remaining time on their own terms so that their life remains meaningful and joyful and authentic. Attitudes and habits are like muscles. They need exercise to grow strong. So truth in treatment is really a new way to think about medical treatment overall. It puts patients in the driver's seat. It inspires people to be true to themselves, and it helps families express love and support, not just feed the monster. So this initiative is about shifting expectations, empowering people to get care consistent with their own values and priorities. Frankly, it's about how you want to live, not about how you want to die. It's about courage and candor and life. Truth in Treatment has a portfolio of tools. Our research says what people really want is full information about all their treatment options and their effect on the quality of life. The first tool is a very low-tech tool. It's a simple greeting card that we call the trust card. People use it to tell their doctor about their desire for information and give the doctor permission to be candid. Doctors say they need this permission. The second tool, we're calling the doctor decoder, simply tells people, helps people ask questions to get the information they need. How likely is this treatment to extend my life, doc? By how much? How will it make me feel? What are the chances if I go on this ventilator, I'll ever get off? Are there other treatment options? What about comfort care? Asking questions builds this benefit versus burden analysis muscle. People learn to choose the treatments that are right for them. We found caregivers, particularly proxies, also need help. They simply don't know how to support their loved ones' decisions and choices. And finally, a tool for the family to keep them aligned with the patient's decisions and choices. Consumers can be the agents of change that the system needs quickly. Every Truth in Treatment patient changes the provider they're talking with. And they change the provider not only for that patient, but every subsequent patient. That's how social movements grow. Back to Buffy. Truth in Treatment addresses the problems that feed that overtreatment monster. It doesn't ask consumers to plan their last days. It doesn't ask them to think about death. And they don't have to guess what kind of life-sustaining treatments they would need or want in some hypothetical situation. Truth in Treatment is for the present. It's getting full information in real time every step of the way. Truth in Treatment will end uninformed consent by getting patients to ask questions, by delivering candor about diagnosis, prognosis, and the upsides and the downsides of every treatment option, not just the first one the doctor mentions. So that's the work that Compassionate Choices is proceeding with. We have a network of about 500,000 people. We have messages and tools ready to go. We're looking for people to join us. Thank you very much.
We have time for a few questions. So I guess the one question that I had was the statistics that you showed earlier about ACL DNRs and advanced directives being disregarded. Is there an explanation? Is this mainly a communication gap, or people change their minds, or is it that the providers aren't providing autonomy to the patients to decide? So in your experience, what are the factors that most explain this?
The most explain advanced directives getting ignored?
Sure, or the data that you showed in general, what are the processes that underlie those?
Well, like I said, I think it's a system. It's a system that simply gets out of control, and it has its own momentum. And people don't stop, patients don't stop, family members don't stop. Once you're sort of caught up in that momentum, it's very, very hard to say, wait, time out. My life is deteriorating, these treatments aren't helping. It's easier if you go in with a mindset, there's a woman who Fox News is following right now who is 90 years old. She had uterine cancer. Norma. I think Norma is her website. And the doctor proposed a set of radiation and chemo treatment for her, and she said, are you kidding me? I'm 90 years old. I'm going on the road. There was no question about what her priorities were, and I think, frankly, the likelihood that any cancer treatment for a 90-year-old with advanced uterine cancer would be unlikely to extend her life enough to justify the deterioration in quality that she would experience. People just aren't used to doing those analyses, and providers are not used to leading their patients there. They don't want to lead their patients there. They will go there if their patients